Hi everybody, my name is Kevin Erickson and I handle communications for FMC. Much of my work involves outreach in the music community as well as to the many organizations that play a role in important policy conversations. There are a bunch of issues at play right now. One of them is net neutrality, which actually shouldn't be a debate at this point after millions of Americans, including many artists, have all spoken out for rules to prevent the pay-to-play internet, and we're thrilled that our next speaker, Commissioner Clyburn, has been so active on this issue as well. There's the proposed merger between Comcast and Time Warner Cable, which could further tilt the marketplace in favor of just a few powerful companies. It's important that when we talk about the internet that we remember that not everybody has the same level of access to the internet, and that these technological tools don't accrue to every citizen in the same way. That needs to be fixed. And we appreciate the Commissioner's efforts to close the digital divide because we think that that is key to establishing healthy, creative communities in more places. But it's not only about digital technology. The FCC also determines the rules for our public airwaves, which ultimately shapes what music and media reaches audiences in local communities. I'm honored to organize musicians around many of the principles that Commissioner Clyburn advances every day. Please join me in welcoming her to the stage.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson, and good morning, everyone. And thank you for affirming that there are a couple of items that are open items. So if you hear or sense that I am a little tentative this morning, it's not that that is my personality. If you've done any research on me, that is not my personality. But what I will say to you is we kind of tiptoe a little bit when items are open. So again, if you sense a little me being just a little less forceful and forward, that's the only reasons. But I wanted to let you know that 2 weeks ago, I was incredibly honored by the presence of Stevie Wonder, who came to my office at the FCC. There is, and I am not, I don't have an ego, but there's the most adorable picture on my Twitter account. Check it out. We both look incredibly great. But like many baby boomers, I can benchmark some of the highs and lows of my life through references to his song. Higher Ground gave me that much needed lift when I was trying to finish that marathon very badly. And when those challenges of the day just seemed too much. His song As made me feel incredibly positive about the prospect of real love. Now the jury's still out on that one, but that's another conversation for another time. Master Blaster and Do I Do showed me that even a musical genius can experiment and be influenced by current musical trends. And Sir Duke, and We Can Work It Out, let us all know how through song Stevie Wonder respects and pays tribute to the legends of the past. Growing up in the South, more specifically South Carolina, that offered me a wealth of musical traditions that shaped my views and tastes. Our family listened to a wide range of genres, from classical, soul, gospel, to country, rock, of course, blues and jazz. And a little known Mignon Clyburn, don't look up the L, still coming to terms with it, fact, is that I took piano and violin lessons for a number of years and actually did not put that fiddle down until my sophomore year in college, all of which contributed to my eclectic musical taste. Music is the healing force of the world, according to those lyrics in that upbeat 1975 OJ standard, I Love Music. And like you, I cannot imagine my life without music. And if the classical maxim that love is a universal language of the world is true, I believe that music is a very, very close second. I also believe, like Berthold Auerbach, that music washes away from the soul the dust of everyday life. Before coming to Washington, D.C. 5 years ago, I served as a member of the Public Service Commission of South Carolina, representing both rural and urban constituents as a state regulator. Now, as a federal level, regulator at the federal level, I see myself as a champion of the voiceless, those without well-connected lawyers or lobbyists in this city, but still try, and they try hard to be heard. I strive to be a facilitator of opportunities and a connector of the disconnected. I seek to be a strong advocate for free enterprise and robust competition. I support allowing markets the chance to solve problems while remaining ever so focused on the consumer. And for me, this means ensuring that those consumers have the tools to be able to pick winners and losers, and that we as regulators should not give companies priorities or allow the government to dictate the result where a functioning market can do it best. What does this mean for you and your interests? It means that this commissioner seeks to advance the optimal expression for artists and the creators of original music, and that our policy should encourage more, not less, creativity and ownership. If you have been following the news of late, and I know you have, you notice that a lot is going on at the Federal Communications Commission, and as difficult as it is to keep track of all of the issues we are working on, I can sum them up for you in 3 broad policy strokes that have strong and far-reaching implications for the music industry: retaining a free and open internet, expanding broadband networks' reach and speed, and promoting competition. Of course, the most visible of the 3 is the open internet proceeding. Over the past few months, almost 4 million comments have been filed, and yes, they are being read. We welcome and are listening to this incredible input. These numbers, these comments speak volumes of the tremendous impact the internet has on our society and just how important it is to determine the right policy as the FCC moves to consider permanent open internet rules. For many, this marks their first time participating in a government proceeding and highlights not only the importance of a free and open internet, but the power such openness has to encourage civic engagement. The power of an open internet enables musicians who have been told no by those big corporations to prove those gatekeepers and critics wrong. Musicians can distribute their content online and demonstrate the power of a good idea, and that power and that good idea can now reach millions. And as we move forward, my focus will primarily be on the impact to consumers, something I fear that has gotten lost in this debate over 706 versus Title II, and the parsing through each word in the DC Circuit's decision. The critical objective, as I see it, is first, that we must determine the right policy, and after, and only after that is established, should we decide on the appropriate legal framework to achieve that result. The Commission has also been working to implement policies to expand the reach of our country's wireless and wireline broadband networks, because we realize that broadband is the foundation for economic growth, job creation, global competitiveness, and a better way of life. However, despite its increased importance, we continue to face challenges in getting millions to adopt broadband. This is disproportionately true among the elderly, those living with disabilities, and in the Latino and African American communities, but we have made progress. And while the adoption gap between whites and African Americans has been nearly cut in half since 2009, we still have much, much, much more work to do. So I commit to you this morning that the FCC will continue to pursue policies to ensure all Americans, regardless of how much money they make or where they live or what their background is, that they are connected. But last but not least, the Commission is focused on promoting competition. From merger reviews to issues involving wireless spectrum, competition analysis is involved in nearly every single issue that the FCC addresses. And as I said, it is my personal belief that markets should be left alone when they are working well, but I repeatedly affirm that I am not afraid to step in and regulate when the market does not work to promote fair and equitable results, because absent these objectives, consumers suffer and diversity is put more at risk. At this point, you may be wondering how I plan to further this argument that the broad ideas we are working to implement at the FCC matter to the future of music policy. With important issues on the table, like copyright laws and digital rights management that have direct implications for artists, it is easy to look past the role communications regulation plays. After all, given that so much of the value of music to content producers depends on the legal protection being given to their works after they have been created and distributed, copyright law is critically important to ensuring that artists are compensated fairly. This is especially critical and crucial in the digital age, where technology and online sharing have made piracy a constant threat from which all artists must guard their work. However, as a communications regulator, I would argue that cultivating the optimal policy to incentivize and allow creative works to come to the digital marketplace in the first place is equally as important. Without the proper regulatory environment in place, your works may never get produced, let alone have need for the protection of copyright laws. So this is where communications policy comes in. As an unabashed proponent of diversity, I strive to ensure a level playing field and for the game to be open to every player who wants to step onto that field. In the music industry, this means considering the perspectives of both actual musicians and the major industry players to guarantee that artists have access to the internet's distribution avenues and that all consumers have access to content. By content, I mean all diverse content this world has to offer, not just the mainstream green-lighted or popular music that a few radio stations play over and over and over again, but even by doing something as simple as listening to a song on your iPhone makes clear that the content producers of today face a different world than those of the past. Instead of that traditional model, where music is distributed via record companies and radio stations, artists now have the option to reach their audience directly through webcasts, websites like SoundCloud and YouTube, and other apps. Just think about this, and I'm not sure how some of you will think about this, but the world would have never been introduced to Justin Bieber without YouTube. And without an open internet, more success may not be possible. Now, we love Justin most days. Today's musicians increasingly dependent on a level online playing field to reach their audiences, one that does not favor different types of content over another. So the FCC's commitment to retaining a free and open internet for everyone is critical to me, and I know critical to you. The expansion of broadband networks' reach and speed will incentivize the innovation of new applications and technology to which even more musicians and product consumers, producers have access. Finally, by promoting competition and ensuring that the internet remains free and open, we all can enable mobile platforms to remain accessible to producers and consumers. By pursuing these three critical goals at the FCC, I firmly believe that we can create a regulatory regime that will enable more creativity and innovation by content producers while ensuring far-reaching access to diverse music and content for consumers. I realize that this framework is but one piece of the overall puzzle, but from my perspective, and I know from yours, these issues may be challenging, but the future of music and the future of us all remains both dynamic and bright. Thank you very much for this opportunity to join you today. And I am not sure if we have the opportunity for questions. I must admit there might be only a few that I could answer today, but if so, I'd like to get it on the record, and we'll share with you soon. So I'm not sure, again, what our time looks like. We've got 5 minutes? Okay.
My name's Tom Silverman from the New Music Seminar and Tommy Boy Records in New York.
Oh.
There was a study done a few years ago by the Future of Music Coalition on radio, and the amount of music that was played, the number of spins that radio played of independent music. And they found overall in commercial radio, only 10% of the music they played was independent, yet 35% of all of the sales of music is independent. In the streaming world, it's probably even higher than that. This discrepancy is something that is concerning, and based on your comments, I think you would probably be concerned about it too.
Absolutely.
What can we do to try to get the large broadcasting companies to play a proportional amount of independent music, at least as a proportional to what's being bought by
So
consumers?
I'm going to challenge you, and I did this, I am an incident magnet, and what I mean by that, I was just in Ottawa that horrible day, and talking to some regulators about this. We oftentimes think about and talk about things in terms of large platforms. I challenge you to let's think about things in multiple small platforms. We've got low power radio options in communities, and we just licensed a host of those stations that could be potential outlets for everyone in this room. We have some things on the horizon that we don't talk about a lot, they call it sort of cognitive radio and different types of experiments that are on the horizon that will be happening in radio, that over the same signal we could customize different communities. Like I could be in Anacostia listening to 93.1, but 93.1 in Georgetown might be a different music stream than the other. These are the types of things that are on the horizon that we need to be keeping up with and thinking about as it relates to distributing content. There are very few things that we can control over some of the legacy platforms, but what I love about what is possible for today is that we can have our auditions on other platforms and force, hopefully, or influence, we don't use the word force, forgive that, strike that from the record, influence some of those legacy platforms to change that 10% figure and show that there is truly a market, and sync that up with what you said, the sales being 35% and the listenership being legacy.
92% of all Americans listen to radio still every week.
Absolutely.
And it's the way most new music breaks. Unfortunately, even though we have Spotify and we have Pandora and many other digital alternatives, and low power exists, and also, the HD stations exist that theoretically will play more, there still is a very small number, and there's also a study being done right now to identify what a tiny number of artists are played most of the time on stations. There are local content rules within the FCC license that are poorly enforced right now, and there's very minimal efforts made by the big broadcasters. The big broadcasters are the ones that control who breaks and who doesn't break, and I think it's really time that the FCC starts to look at the big current people who also have an exemption from paying artists at all and don't even pay for the use of music other than the songwriter's composition side. I think that they should be playing everyone's music, at least in proportion to the way it's being
So let's talk more about that and how we can create an environment that will incentivize, those, again, legacy I've been out of radio station too long, programmers, or those who program, the music for those stations to do so. So let's talk a bit more offline how hopefully, collectively we can be a conduit for changing that paradigm. I'm with you. I love radio. I spend a lot of time driving up and down 95, going home. I would love more alternatives in terms of, music to be introduced on legacy platforms to those new artists that I have to kind of hear by chance. So let's talk a bit more about this. You have a friend in me from that perspective. If that is something that truly continues to mean more to you, let's elevate and escalate and turn up the volume on that paradigm and see what we can do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Olu Yemisi, and I'm a vocalist and independent artist. I was just going to make a statement based on what he said, that even with the artists that are not up-and-coming artists, you have some established artists that at one time were being played on the radio.
Right.
I've gone to a lot of those concerts, as well as independent artist concerts, and bought the CD after the show. I've actually bought more of those CDs than the people who keep being, played on the radio constantly. It's the same 20 people all the time, every so many months. So this is something that is more important, because it's like, when and how is my question for this to happen, and I'd be open to getting your card or whatever so we can continue the conversation.
Again, let's do that. I wish I could answer that when and, that I think I know how. I hope I know how. I just don't know when. And so, again, one of the things that I am continuing to do when we talk about open internet and other such proceedings that will encourage more options and opportunities I'm not going away or leaving that legacy platform. I think it's important. You made it clear in terms of, our listenership, how important it still is. But what I have been upbeat about on the content, not necessarily pure music, is how artists and how writers and how creators have been proving themselves, basically auditioning and developing a following online, and then the legacy former greenlighters are coming, knocking on their doors and coming to them. So how can we create, again, it's about eyeballs and ears. And so how can we continue as those persons recycle? Because again, we need to encourage that recycling to include some of the minds and some of the aspirations and some of the feeling in this room. That's what we need to talk about. How do we encourage those C-suites and those program directors and all of those to be, again, more mindful of where, things are trending. So we can talk offline about that, but these are the things when I talk about diversity, in terms of music and in terms of personnel, I'm not just talking about race and gender and the like. I'm talking about ideas and concepts and regionality and all of these other things that will hopefully influence the marketplace if there are more greenlighters that think like us in terms of diverse content and diverse artists. Then little by little, things will change. So we can talk outline, of course, offline or online. And I believe I have a card for us to exchange. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to join you.